What is going on, guys? We are back playing some more Surviving with IndustrialCraft 2. Now today, guys, we're going to be messing around with the liquid-cooled nuclear reactor again. More specifically, we are going to be working on the steam generation and power generation portions of it, because last episode we just worked on setting up the reactor itself, which is the 5x5x5 structure that takes in coolant and then makes it into hot coolant. So now we got to pull that stuff out, turn it into steam, then use that steam in the steam generators and the kinetic generators to actually make power. Now I'm really excited for this because this is some complicated stuff here, and I spent a long time looking into it, figuring out how it works, so I can make the best video for you guys to help you guys understand it, because I know a lot of people have trouble with this. A lot of people had trouble with the nuclear reactor in general, and this is just a harder version of that. So hopefully this will be informative for you guys. We do have a lot of crafting to do today because, as you can tell, we have expanded yet again on our chests. So if you don't know, we started over here with one chest, then we got two single chests, one on top of the other, and now we're working with one single chest and a double chest. So it seems every time that I'm working on a big project, I have to expand these a little bit, which I guess is kind of good and bad. It means I have to spend more time getting resources, but it also means that we're probably going to be doing something cooler that episode. So a lot of crafting to do, a lot of stuff in here that we need to craft. It's not too much. It was really expensive, and it did take me a while to get all this stuff set up, but it's just a lot of different blocks that we're going to need for this whole thing. So hopefully I can remember them, so I actually craft the right things. But I guess I can say before I jump into this, I do want to say one thing. If you guys don't know, I had finals this last week, which is why I didn't upload for like 5 or 6 days. But a lot of you guys were awesome and super understanding about it in the last video. And you said, you know, take your time, Rage, study for finals, get good grades, and then come back. So I really do appreciate that, guys. I was pretty stressed out, kind of ripping my hair out, running on no sleep, pretty much just caffeine. Funny story, I actually went and looked up the safe amount of caffeine intake because I was drinking like 4 cups of coffee and multiple Red Bulls every day to stay awake. But I am home now, which might be why you hear a little different audio, might be a little bit worse, might be better, I don't know. But I'm going to try my best to put out a video every single day as best as I can. So you guys can look forward to that, and that's kind of my thank you for you guys being so understanding about this last week. But now I've been rambling for a little bit. We're going to jump into this because, you know, I know a lot of people are coming here and they don't really care about all that stuff. But so what we need to do is craft a lot of stuff. Now, luckily for me, I have all these extra fluid distributors left over from the last project we worked on. I got rid of a lot of these and never took the time to rehook them up to the blast furnace setup. So we actually need 12 fluid distributors for this project, which is great because that means we don't have to craft any of these. We need 4 liquid heat exchangers. I got lazy and I just crafted these. It would have involved putting a lot more copper plates together, and this thing was starting to fill up, so I was like, you know what, we'll just craft the liquid heat exchangers. I already had a pump, we got the gold cable, so all this stuff is ready to go. Now we also have this distilled water, which I made in a solar distillery, and we have this coolant that I was in the process of making last episode. So we're going to be using these two things because the distilled water is what we're going to use to make steam, and we can pretty much create a closed loop. Now if you're curious why we're using distilled water, it is because we are going to be making the steam using this, so there's no I think it's called calcification or whatever inside the steam generator, and that pretty much means if you're using regular water, there's impurities in it, and it's going to kind of clog up the machine as you're generating stuff with it. So you have to eventually go back down, break the machine, place it back down, and I don't feel like doing that. So if you don't feel like doing that, use distilled water. If you don't mind doing that, then you can use regular water. So now we get to go into the actual crafting. We got to do a ton of this, which is a little bit annoying, but we're pretty much going to be making all of this right here into I can't even remember what they're called. They are I guess we'll find out right now. Just throw all these in there. So they're the heat conductors. So we need 10 of these for each liquid heat exchanger, which means 40 total. And then along with that, we need a couple more of these for crafting some other things that we're going to be using. So we're just going to craft a ton of these. And the rubber was actually really easy to get because I have a ton of rubber, but getting all this copper was horrible. Absolutely atrocious. So yeah, this was pretty expensive to get. So we got 42 of those, and we're going to need 2 of those for crafting other stuff. I suspect it is going to be for crafting what we have up here. At this point, I don't even remember what we're crafting specifically with these recipes because I set this up a couple days ago and just didn't get around to recording. So this is going to be the steam generator. Okay, so we need 2 of these. Now, if you're curious why, I am making a setup it's essentially I'm making 2 of these setups. One of them on each reactor port, or pretty much we have 2 fluid ports at the reactor, right now. We actually are going to be using 4, 2 for each setup. So essentially each setup is going to take one set of all this stuff, and then it's going to take 2 fluid reactor ports. So you'll see what I'm talking about in a bit. It's a little complicated, but essentially if you're only doing one setup, divide this by 2, divide all the stuff I'm making here by 2, because we're setting up 2 things today. Now this is going to be, what is this going to be? Let us see. I want to say I actually don't have any clue what this is going to turn into. It's interesting. It's like a surprise as to what I'm crafting. Oh, so this is the condenser. This is how we are going to recycle the distilled water that's going to go through our machine. So this is going to be at the end of the whole setup, and essentially the steam is going to get used up. It's going to turn into it's going to go to the condenser, and then it's going to cycle back through the machine and go back into the steam generators. So we got that. Now all of this stuff right here, all of this absurd amount of refined iron. This might have actually been the worst part to make. I can't tell at this point. But this is to make the steam turbine blades. And then you use 3 of these to make steam turbines. Now, because we are making superheated steam, and that means that we're going to be inputting to the steam generator 200 heat units per tick. That's the most efficient way to do it. And we're going to be using 2 different kinetic steam generators and then 2 different kinetic generators per side, because you're gonna have superheated steam, put it through one, get regular steam, put it through another, get the liquid. So that is why we need 4 of these. I would really suggest you use, with this setup, the superheated steam one, because it's so much more efficient than just using regular steam. But I guess if you don't have the money, or not money, if you don't have the resources to do that, you can just say, heck to it, we'll just work with this. So now we are going to be, man, this is really bothering me. I'm just saying this right over here. I was spacing out for a second. These fluid ejector upgrades are the same thing. Okay, let's look at the item IDs. 4268:4. 4268:4. They don't want to stack. Why don't they want to stack? I know it's because clearly one of these, like, maybe this will fix it. Let's do this. Does this fix it? Please tell me this fixed it. Oh man, I'm a genius. Okay, it's because I kind of modified air quotes on one of those, but whatever. So now we are going to be making the generators. Now this one should be like this. Watch this, guys. Watch this right here. Boom. Oh, kinetic steam generator. Memorize the recipe. I'm a god. Okay, so now this one is just going to be the regular kinetic generator. Generators right there, and there we go. Okay, so the kinetic generator. So this should be all that we need, and I know that's funny to say, like, this is all that we need, because that's a ton of stuff, but I need to dump a lot of this stuff just up here. We don't need the wind meter. We're like never going to use that again. We don't need any of this gear because we're going to be using the hazmat suit, because we're going to be moving some stuff around. We're going to need to recharge this electric wrench, but we need to grab all these goodies right here. There we go. Get all those puppies in our inventory, and time to head down. Okay, guys, so now that we're done with all the crafting, and there was a lot of crafting, and I was kind of rambling on while we went through it, I'm going to make sure I timestamp this part in the video, so if you want to skip over the crafting, you can to get here, but now we actually get to work on setting this thing up, which is probably one of the coolest things I will have set up to date in this world, I guess, but one thing I want to note is that I did move the fluid ports from the top up here. So initially I had a fluid port right here and a fluid port right here, not realizing how much space it was going to actually take to set this up. So you do want to give yourself an okay amount of space, and we're also going to need to, the way I'm setting it up, it's going to be on the side of the reactor, so it's easier to set up if it's like this. Probably going to take up most of this room. Might need to expand it a little bit out this direction just because I mean, we're going to need more space, and I need to be able to walk through here, but we're going to set up this side first, and then we're going to set up this side so that I don't kind of trap myself in a position where I can't get to this side. But essentially, you're going to need 2 reactor fluid ports per setup, like I said. So you're going to be using this one to actually output the fluid, and you're going to be using this one to actually input the fluid. Now, before in the video, I said that you only need one because you can output and input through the same thing. But because we are going to be using 2 liquid heat exchangers, we need a fluid distributor to distribute the fluid between the 2 of them. So what we're going to start out with is putting a fluid distributor down here, and I do need to go and charge this electric wrench so I can flip these around, because we're going to be doing a lot of flipping of the fluid distributors. So get this wrench back, and here we go. So we're going to flip this so that it's pulling it out, and I don't know if there's anything in here. Oh, you know what? First things first, I don't even actually know. Okay, so I did not put a fluid ejector upgrade in these yet, and that actually could be a problem. Yeah, that's probably going to be a problem. I'm probably going to have to go make 2 more fluid ejector upgrades. I forgot that I didn't have 2 in here. I think I lost them because I broke these when they were on the top and they fell down into the hot coolant, which lights things on fire. So, but whatever, we'll go finish that later. So we're going to throw it on the fluid distributor again. We're going to flip it over, and this should get hot coolant in it. So we're going to do that, and now we are going to pull out the liquid heat exchangers, which are going to be right here. So we're going to set them up so that they are pointing in the same, I guess, direction. They're pointing in a different direction, but they're pointing towards the same block. You want these coils or the orange square to be pointing towards one block for both of them, which is where our steam generator is going to go. So let us get out our steam generator right here. So that's going to go right here. Now, this is a little bit menacing when you look at it. It's intimidating, but do not worry. It's really easy to set up, and it really doesn't require any maintenance. Now, unfortunately, there is one thing we need to do, which is getting the distilled water out of these fluid cells and into here. And as far as I know, there's no great way to do that other than pumping it in. So maybe I'm just bad and don't know what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I need to pump it in here. So the way I do this typically is I break below the pump and come and flip it down because it needs to be facing the fluid that you're going to be pumping out of here. So we flip it down here, and then I do have upstairs, I actually forgot to grab it, the old CESU that still has some charge in it. We're going to use that to temporarily power this and get the distilled water into it. So it's right here. We can bring this downstairs, and we should be good to go. Okay, so throw this on there and get it like that. Flip it around. So this is good to go, and I'm going to be using 8, so essentially just a full pump load of it, and we can just click it down there, pump it up. It's a little bit slow because it's like you can't, oh, I guess you can click it like that. Okay, so we'll fill this whole area up, pump it out, and that's a full pump right there. So now we should be good to go. We can throw a fluid ejector upgrade in here, and it should, let me just make sure that we're going to get it in the steam generator. Okay, so it should go in there. I don't want to waste any of this because it was a little annoying to get. So it's going to go in here. Now, the reason we're not completely filling this up is just because, oh, yeah, this isn't going to fill it up. So it would take 10 buckets to fill this up. We're not going to need to fully, fill it up because we're creating a closed loop, which essentially means we're going to be using distilled water to make steam, and then that is going to turn back into distilled water, and we are going to recycle it through using the condenser. So that's going to create so that we don't need to keep pumping distilled water in there. That would be really annoying to have to do. So we can now get rid of this. We can get rid of this, and we can fill this hole in here and continue working. So what is going to happen with this is it's eventually going to get 200 heat units per tick input. Now, this is a little scary to work with. I'm going to be straight with you guys because when it starts generating like heat, and it's weird. I don't know exactly what causes it, but eventually it's going to stabilize at 200 heat units per tick, and it's going to be at a stable temperature of 375 degrees Celsius, generating superheated steam for you. But it's going to be exploding a little bit occasionally, and it doesn't destroy blocks, but it makes an explosion animation and a sound that's going to be really loud. It's probably going to happen in the video, and you're going to see it, but do not be alarmed. It shouldn't blow anything up. In my testing, it didn't, but what we're going to be doing is setting it to 221 bars. Now, you can set it to 220. That should be fine, but if you start getting exploding, you can set it to 221. I just set it to 221 to start, and then we set it to 1 millibucket per tick. So eventually, once the temperature goes up, this output will change from distilled water to superheated steam. So that is great. Now what we're going to be doing is taking the kinetic steam generators and putting them right over here. So the way I kind of set these up is I'm going to be breaking this wall right here to do it, to make it a little bit easier. So we're going to throw them right here, and then we're going to take our wrench, and we're going to wrench it so that it's like this. And now these are going to get fluid in them right here, but what we can do is throw these fluid ejector upgrades in both of them. And what this is going to do is eventually when the condenser goes right here, it's going to allow the fluid that builds up in them to be condensed and then sent back through these, and they're kind of going to transport them for us, which is great. So now we have a steam turbine in there. We throw another steam turbine in there. Warning, recognize condensation on turbines slowing down. So that just means you want to get the liquid out of there and everything. We don't have any kinetic units getting output, but that's because we're not generating any steam. So now we're going to get the kinetic steam, or not the kinetic steam generators. We need the regular kinetic generators to go behind these. And we're going to put them down, and then we're going to flip them around. You want to flip it? Yeah, okay, so whoops. We want to flip it. Oh, we're out of power. Okay, so we want to flip it the other way. The first one was correct, but I accidentally flipped it one too many times. So, go back downstairs, flip this again. So this should be good. So now these are going to be outputting EU based on the kinetic units we generate here. This one should be outputting 100 EU per tick. This one should be outputting 50 EU per tick. So it's going to be 300 EU per tick total from this setup. And that is going to be after we cut the heat unit generation from this reactor in half. So we're going to do that a little bit later. I'm going to discuss like how to get a perfect balance going between this whole system, but we're going to continue setting this up now. So we're going to be finishing this up by taking the condenser and putting it right over here, and then putting another fluid ejector upgrade in here. Okay, so it goes down there. I always forget, but we're going to put that in there, and we should be good to go now. Unfortunately, you can see that we used up a lot of fluid ejector upgrades there, and we're not going to have enough for the other side as far as I know, because we're going to have to put one. Oh, we already have one in there. Do we have enough for that side? We have one there, 2, 3. Oh, because it's because these need fluid ejector upgrades right here. So both of these need them too, so that when they get the regular coolant, it can be ejected out. And what we're going to be doing, because they won't eject into this, they won't eject into this, so it's not going to go anywhere. That's where the fluid distributors come in. So we're going to put one down here, and we're going to want to flip it down. Man, I hate doing this work right at this spot. Okay, so we're going to break into this floor so that we can flip these down. So we're going to flip this down so it's getting input from the bottom, and we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to flip that down, and just make sure that's on, yeah, okay, so that is on the bottom. Then we're going to do the same thing again, so I got to continue breaking this ceiling. So we're going to have that, get it from below and below, so we should be good there. And then we're going to put another one down over here, and I'm going to break this. Okay, we're really tearing into this wall right now. You know what I'm actually going to do? I'm going to fully break this, and we're going to put one down right here, and then we're going to flip it so that it's got the blue on the far side, and then we're going to change it to concentrate, and that's because it's going to take one from this and from this side, and it's going to put them both into this single one in the front. So it's a lot easier for me to just switch it to concentrate after I know that the green is going to be, or the green is going to end up on this side. So let us put this one down. We got to put this one down up here, and then we have to make sure that's on the bottom, and then we can reconstruct this entire ceiling. And honestly, I guess we don't really need to refill the wrench. Okay, so now what this is going to be doing is taking the regular coolant and re-putting it into the system. So that's going to input it back in, and it's going to create a loop. So this is one finished setup on this side, and what we're going to do is the same thing on this side. I'm actually going to hop off camera, and I'm going to set this one up, and I'll fix all the fluid ejector upgrades that I need to make. I'll get all that stuff situated, and then we'll come back, we'll actually turn it on, and I'll explain the last steps that you're going to need to take to actually get your system working perfectly. Okay guys, so one side note that I want to point out is I'm actually in the middle of constructing the second portion, and one thing I forgot to do was actually go into these liquid heat exchangers and throw in these heat conductors here. And unfortunately, we actually have a little trouble accessing this one over here, which is why I probably should have thrown it in there earlier. But it's going to take 10 per, and that's going to allow for the maximum heat transfer, which is going to be, in this case, 100 from each one, which is why we need 2 of them so that we can get 200 heat unit input per tick to each of these steam generators. So do that on both sides. That's why we're going to need 40 of them. And now I'm going to hop off camera again, finish actually constructing this, and then I'll be back. Okay guys, so for the most part, the whole system down here should be set up. It is a little bit cramped, but we should be able to make sure everything is working properly when we start the system up. So each side is identical. Like I said before, we have all of these heat conductors in here that are allowing for 10 heat units per tick to be generated through this, so a maximum of 200 heat units per tick. And we're going to make sure that these liquid heat exchangers are going to be running consistently and pretty much just working in a perfect cycle. So we want to be generating just enough coolant to be, running the system without allowing it to overheat, without allowing it to back up, without allowing it to do any of that. So essentially, what we want to do is make sure that the heat units that we're using for this is the heat units that the reactor is putting out, because transferring 400 heat units through the coolant is just going to allow for a generation of 400 heat units down here with the liquid heat exchangers. So when we're up here and we go to this reactor and we look at it and we flip it on eventually, it is going to read 800 heat units. So I'm just filling this up with a little bit more coolant because I didn't have all this done when I was first setting this up. So we can throw this in there, and this has 10 buckets in here, so that might be enough, that might not. I might need to throw a little bit more in there, not exactly sure. But if we were to flip this thing on right now, the system would start running, and I believe we're going to hear explosions downstairs, and I'm so scared right now. But we're going to flip it. It's going to be outputting 800 heat units, and that is going to be putting out a lot of, or it's going to be using up a lot of this coolant that we have, and it's not going to be getting it back fast enough. Now that's a huge problem. So what we're going to be doing is taking this setup, and we're going to be converting it to one that's going to generate the exact amount of heat units per second, which is going to be 400. That's what we want, 400 heat units per second. Okay, that's going to be the perfect balance. So to get that, it's actually possible. We take out these right here and take out these right here. So eventually I will make this setup the same way I did before, and that'll be able to handle 4 of those systems downstairs instead of 2, because each one is going to allow for 200 heat units per tick. So right now we only need this top part really. So when we flip this on, it should be generating 400 heat units per tick at maximum capacity. Oh, that is odd. Okay guys, figured out what the issue was. I actually don't want these dual fuel rods right here. We want to take these out, and we want to put in the 2 ones down here. So now if we were to flip this thing on, now it would generate us 400 heat units per second, which is a perfect balance. You'll see it should be going out and coming in at roughly the same rate eventually. We may need to add a little bit more coolant to help stabilize the system, but eventually this should be able to maintain this. So I am going to throw a little bit more coolant in there while this whole system runs. But if we come down here, make sure everything's functioning properly, we should be getting 200 heat units per tick on both of these. They should be heating up. And let's make sure we're getting 200 heat units per tick on this one. Okay, so that means that the liquid heat exchangers are working perfectly, and it will be outputting the regular coolant back through here, back into the system, which is great. Make sure there's no backups in any of these. Awesome. These should be running without anything in there. Okay, so this one right here has a little bit of a backup in there. Does this one? Okay, so this one's not running into that problem, but that's fine. Let's come back up here and make sure that nothing's going too crazy with this. So let's make sure that it maintains between 770 and 800. It should maintain that, no problem. But we're going to come back down here now and look at these systems. So right now we're not getting any steam. That is because this needs to go up another roughly 90 degrees, and I'm going to allow it to do that so that you guys can listen to the explosions that scared me so badly when they first happened. But each of these should be going up at roughly the same rate. This one's actually a lot higher. Maybe it got stuff output into it first, but yeah. So once that happens, these will start generating the kinetic units. This will be generating 100 EU per tick, and then we can take that and we can wire it all the way up to our system up there somehow. I don't even know how I want to do that yet. I might not even wire it just yet, but I do want to see these when they start running. So this one, okay, so now this one is creating superheated steam. There's the explosion that I was expecting. If you're allowing it to go and fluctuate between this 200 heat unit per tick input, it's going to keep exploding. Okay, it's going to scare the crap out of you. Oh gosh. Okay, so I think that was this one kicking on. Oh gosh, that's going to give me a heart attack one of these days. I think every time I'm going to sign into this world, I'm going to hear those explosions too, because this whole thing is going to kick on. So, but now we have power generation. So this one's generating 100 EU per tick. 50 U per tick, like I said, 150, and we should be able to come back upstairs and verify that this is sticking with the coolant. So yep, it's fluctuating between the same exact numbers. Now it's stabilized a little bit. So if we had just left it same as before, it would have eventually stabilized at a lower number, just because it would have less internal coolant to be fluctuating through it. But now all we have to worry about is just replacing these when they run out, and we can leave it on for as long as we want. And eventually it is going to run out of places to store this power, so I guess it actually is kind of important that I get that power and move it somewhere so we don't need to listen to explosions and stuff when it starts backing up. So what we can do is just come up here. Did I already put all the wires? Oh, they're in my inventory. What am I doing? Oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind. One thing I want to apologize for before I finish this video is I know I was saying like dumb stuff during the video. I just like start rambling a little bit throughout the video about random stuff, or say like a stupid saying that wasn't even correct. That is because I'm running on 2.5 hours of sleep here, people. So I hope you understand, but had an 8 a.m. exam, had to move stuff out of my room, get it into a car, had an hour drive home, was starving, running on no sleep, and then I wanted to record this video. So I do apologize if it's been a little bit lackluster, but that would be why. So now we just need to figure out where things are in relation to this. So let's get upstairs. I don't have on the stuff to fly, unfortunately. So what we can do is just send a wire down like this. And where do we want to connect it? We can connect it right over here. So this should be good if we put this right like that. And we should be able to hook it up right like this. And that should increase our input into this system by a lot. Keep it pretty darn steady. And we can fill this in, make it look a little bit nicer, not so absolutely disgusting. Is there anything down there? Or are those just random openings there? Whatever. We'll fill this in. Fill all this good stuff in. And this should be good to go. We should be able to leave it here. Things should be fine. The condenser should be condensing stuff. You can see it running with steam. Eventually this will fill up with steam. Doesn't require any power or anything for this. Yep, you can see it fills up with steam. The process happens. It'll cycle it back through here and it makes its way back here. And it maintains it at 8 buckets. So I don't even think you need that much to keep the closed cycle, but I threw it in there because why not? So everything should be good to go. So that is the liquid cooled nuclear reactor, guys. That's how you get it to function. Obviously you can get a lot more power out of it if you start generating more heat units. You're outputting more fluid out of it and inputting more and just generating more steam in general. But you guys can go and use that information that I just taught you to create as great a steam generator as you want. Let me know how yours goes in the comments. And as always, if you found the video useful or entertaining in any way, feel free to give it a like. It does help me out a lot. If you have any questions, post those in the comments too. That's what I'm here for. Thanks for listening to all my rambling today, guys. I do apologize again for missing uploads for the last like 6 days. Thanks for being so understanding again too. All the people that were understanding are probably still watching, and all the people that weren't probably don't care enough to watch to hear. So thank you to you guys, and I will talk to you guys later.